to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Omar, and we talk about leadership in the retail settings, but we're talking about smaller retail settings, right? Like boutique sellers. Think of AV, think of appliances, think of wireless retail, furniture locations, things outside of your big box retail, okay? And one of the things I want to talk about today is this fallacy that I've been seeing a lot, right? And it kind of strung struck home the other day when I was reading a post on LinkedIn, and it had to do with the big box retail chain, right? And I know this firsthand as well. Those running big box retail are completely disconnected between what they think they see and what's actually occurring, because unlike what you guys think, when it comes to those execs, those CEOs, they're not trying to actually get more sales. What they're trying to do is increase that shareholder value by any means necessary. They could give a rat's ass what happens the year after they leave or the month after they leave that role. Their only goal is to just get as much money for themselves personally while they're in that role. And that's why I think there's a big disconnect, because sometimes I see some companies, smaller organizations, trying to run as though they're this large organization, right? Not understanding what the disconnect is, why some larger organizations are ran into the ground, why they get poor reviews. And the only thing that's really holding and floating them up isn't necessarily the actual sales they're making, but the way that they're manipulating the share prices. Okay. So don't fall into that fallacy that, okay, I have to consistently be lean and mean because that's how the big guys do it and that's how they're making their money. That's not how they're making their money, right? They're not making their money that way. There's a reason why they keep cutting, because on the balance sheet, why they keep cutting staff, because on the balance sheets, that's the largest uh, source of what do we call it? I'm driving a bank right now, but it's going to be the largest source of money that they're losing essentially. But what they don't realize is when they lose people that are knowledgeable in what they're selling, especially when you're talking about something that's very niche, something that's very boutique. Okay, um, think of large retailers that have premium and luxury products that they sell. When they start removing those people that actually know what the fuck they're talking about, and wonder why, hey, some of these profits aren't driving the way that we used to drive out of these locations. We need to cut your staff. We need to be leaner, right? And it's just like, you guys don't understand what you're doing. Now you're removing one, that premium clientele that used to come in here and spend money with us, right? Where, yeah, they may not have counted a lot, but they're accounting for 5 to 10% of the margins of the location, maybe even more, okay? And then you're reducing headcount, meaning that there's less people on the staff that know what the fuck they're talking about when people are asking them things on the sales floor. And now you have product that's also getting returned because it was the wrong items. It didn't, get explained to the customer. It wasn't properly vetted before the customer purchased it, or vice versa. Okay. So then you start getting those ripple effects of, not only do you have less product going out, you have more product coming back as returns, and you're really facing that issue. And there's a few big box retailers out there that are having to increase their fucking outlet centers because they just can't deal with the amount of returns that are getting returned back to the stores, right? That are getting returned back after being purchased because it wasn't the right fit. It's already physically been opened, so you can't tell that it's brand new. It got damaged or whatever the case is. It was completely wrong, and that's where you start seeing those disconnects, right? Where, okay, it's going towards that tail end of the individuals, that CEOs, the C-suites, right? Tenure, and they're about to bail. They could give a rat's ass what's going to happen the month after they leave, what's going to happen the year, let alone 5, 10 years down the road. They could give a rat's ass about that. That is not their prerogative, right? But when we're talking about small boutique retail locations, they're typically still owned and operated privately. The family owned, probably, or it's a small group of investors that back it and are owning and operating it. You need to understand, having the right amount of staff that are knowledgeable makes a difference in not just the customer experience, but the amount of customers that you have that come back and that will actually bring others to you. When you have the right amount of staff, it allows your team to be able to do a few different things besides breathe, right? And catch their fucking breath, because they're not machines, they're not robots. They can't continuously be operating at 100%. And that's where a lot of people confuse, like, oh, we got to get this new person that just came on that's a week in. They got to be the same as a person that's been here for 3-4 years, that knows the system, that knows the policies and procedures, and can work around the issues that we have, because those SOPs that we have are incorrect. But there's a disconnect because those in corporate aren't understanding what's actually happening, right? So that's the SOP, but this is how we actually get shit done, right? When an issue occurs, yes, do this, but also do this, because if you do that, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to fall through the cracks, and that's that. And you're going to have an upset customer, a canceled order, and there goes your commission. Okay. That's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid people leaving. We want to avoid on both ends, right? Customers and employees. And that means that we have to have the right amount of staff to be able to allow for a little bit of breathing room, where if we get flooded with customers, it's not let's make them all wait. It's okay, we can attend to them in a proper manner, where all right, we can help answer the questions, we can be able to reach out to them, we can, right, answer these questions for them. Boom, we're good, we're solid. We can spend a little bit more time getting to those quality questions. And then for the new people, we have time to actually be able to train and develop them so that they can shadow. Instead of, okay, they're a week in, they've done their online trainings, now let's throw them on the floor and they'll figure it out. And then 2 months later, wonder, why do we still have this person? We should have fired them last week. Guys, that's not how you hire people. That's not how you retain talent. That's not a fast-paced work environment, even though we all know what that code is for. If you're constantly saying it's a fast-paced work environment, it means you got shit for training, and you're hoping somebody's going to come on board and be able to have what you need, but you're still churning and burning through a lot of talent. You're churning and burning through weeks and weeks, if not months, of trying to bring talent on board. That's not how you do things correctly. That's not going to keep you afloat once you get larger. That's not going to be, oh, once we figure it out, once we get more talent, once we get more people, it's going to be easier for us. No, it only hemorrhages. It only becomes bigger. Okay. You need to get to it sooner. Focus on training, focus on developing. This is why I'm a big proponent of spending as little as 15 minutes a day just on a focused coaching session, because it goes such a long way in getting to understand where somebody is at and what we can continue to work on. Because that's where you start to see where we're actually getting something in, and where we have that disconnect as far as the talent goes and the performance. Because sometimes it's just a little bit of TLC that's going to make the difference between somebody who's underperforming and somebody who's above quota, who's constantly performing above goal. That's where you're going to see a big difference in performance, is by spending focused time on coaching and developing. Yes, you're going to bring in new hires. You're going to go through your rudimentary training that you have, if you have something, but the continuous ongoing training, the development of people, that's where things are at. Because then you're going to notice that you're not chasing numbers. You're not, hey, it's, 1 o'clock. Why haven't we sold this warranty? Why haven't we sold this protection plan? Why haven't we sold, right, this membership? Why haven't we sold, something? You're not chasing that. You have the ability to have people actually perform and get things done. And then on top of that, right, you can do other things outside of those four walls to be able to get more business in. You have the ability to be able to leave and not have to worry about those NPS scores that come in, right? If you're a franchisee, a dealer, authorized retailer, whatever the case is, okay? Those NPS scores, those CSATs, right? Those customer surveys, those are big in making sure that for a lot of you, you can still have not just that franchise or that name that you're using, but also affects your compensation, right? Especially if you're a service-based industry, it affects the compensation on that aspect. But also, it gets more people to come back in. And that's what we want to focus on. And we want people to be able to stay on board for longer, because the longer that they're there, the more knowledge and more skills in a perfect world, when you're focusing on training and developing, they've developed. And that means that you have more people that can actually do the role. This is why I'm telling you guys, don't think of these entry level roles as entry level when you're expecting, veteran numbers, and you want that to be consistent. Somebody who's fresh, new in the industry, never had a sales role in their life, is going to take a longer time to really catch up to where you want them to be at, because it's not a will issue. It comes down to a skill issue. And you got to remember that when you're brand new to something, you can't consistently be on point and expect to be a top performer. It's like going to the fucking gym for the first time and trying to go hardcore, and then you get fucking exhausted. Your muscles are going to start hurting. You might hurt your muscles, right? In the case when it comes to employees, that means they're fucking quitting because they're just out of it. They're done. They're like, this is too exhausting. It's mentally fatiguing. That's what you guys don't understand when it comes to sales sometimes. You forget what it's like to be brand new, not just in the role, but also in the industry that you're in. You forget what that's like. So when you're training and trying to develop people, to you, it makes sense. For a lot of your store managers or assistant managers that you're throwing onto these people to train and develop these new people, when they've never gone through something themselves in that nature, their mindset is, I understand this. I get this. I've been doing this for X amount of years. So this new person better get this right away. Whenever I say it, they should get it first and foremost. First time, every time. It doesn't work like that, guys. Right? It doesn't work like that. It takes training. It takes development. I'm going to throw this back to a topic we talked about. Think of all your, all these top professional players that you like to watch, right? That you follow. Right now is the Olympics. How long have they been training and practicing to be able to perform at that level? A very fucking long time. Yet you're throwing somebody brand new who's never done it and expect to get that type of performance or even D-League performance. It doesn't happen that way. They might have some skill, right? Like a foundation of what you need. They can talk to somebody. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be good at what's going on without some type of guidance, without some type of mentorship. You would be surprised how quick performance can change when you start to offer this, when you start to actually bring this on board. Remember, as a leader, the biggest sign that you are actually doing great as a leader is that your team doesn't need you. They can perform without you constantly having to hover around, without you constantly micromanaging and bombarding them. If you're constantly having to micromanage and bombarding your teams to perform, like, why aren't you guys doing this? Why aren't you guys doing this? It comes down to not so much a will issue, but a skill issue. It needs to be developed. And you got to remember, when you're developing people, there's going to be different facets that they're going to get right away, a lot of facets that they're not. It's going to take time. I've talked about this in the trainings I've done, that there's 4 levels of consciousness when it comes to people understanding something. And a lot of your people are stuck between level 1 and level 2, right? They unconsciously are incompetent. Okay? That's the first level. They don't know what they don't know. The second level is that they're consciously incompetent. They understand they don't know something. And that's where a lot of your new people fall into, within those two, right? Those 2 levels. And they have nobody that's there to guide them. Well, they should be able to pick it up by watching. No. Once they see and understand what they're supposed to be doing, then that can work. But if they don't know what's going on, they don't know how to be able to observe, or worse, you're constantly busy and they can't pay attention because they're so focused and tunnel visioned on what they're doing, how are they going to learn? They're not even learning by failure because they don't even understand what the fuck is going on. That's where a lot of new managers, that's where a lot of people that are trying to get new hires to come on board and wonder why they can't stick or wonder why they're not performing. They're not spending time on training and focusing. They're saying, I did it once with them already and they're not getting it. You did it once? What? When did you do it? 3 months ago? 2 months ago? Last week? Yesterday? Today? Like, when did you do this that would allow you to have an understanding of where they're at right now, today? You got to focus on training and developing them because that's where the key to success is going to be, especially in an area in a time like right now that we're going through where it is rough waters that we're treading, right? It is rough waters that we're in. And we've been saying this for a while. I'm not the only one that's been saying that this is around the corner, that we've been in the midst of it. It is now coming to fruition. We're starting to see it. So a lot of you guys may think that, oh, there's going to be a lot of talent for me to be able to pick up on and bring on board. It's going to do shit if they don't have the right skills to be able to help overcome what's about to hit us, right? If they can't overcome anything, that's where the issue is going to be. And you might think, well, if they got industry experience, yeah, they got industry experience, but is your company the exact same way that the other company they left is run? Is everything the exact same? Do you have the same level of support as they did before? Do you have less support, right? What does that look like? Are they going to have to do everything from A to Z? Or are they going to be working with a project manager? What are we looking at? And that's what you need to understand, because you might think, okay, they have the industry experience, so they'll be able to catch on right away. They need that guidance at the beginning to be able to catch on right away. Once they have that guidance, comes with training and developing, they're able to get it and they can move forward. Without that guidance and developing, it's going to take them a while. Even for a veteran in the industry, it will still take a while in a new organization. Okay? But for a lot of you guys, you're trying to bring on board new people because you also understand that there's a difference in compensation when it comes to a new person. But you also need to train and develop them. Because yes, even though the labor cost is going to be lower, the opportunity cost is going to be tremendous because there's going to be so much that's going to be leaving. So you got to understand that yes, you need to run with a healthy amount of staff, not a skeleton staff, not a very lean and mean crew, because that's not going to allow you the opportunity to be able to grow appropriately. Stop trying to mimic and imitate these large corporations that are literally being ran into the ground by the different executives that run them. Okay? You need to understand where you stand and how you can differentiate yourself in this industry, especially in these times, in this market. Because I will tell you, there's a lot of big box retailers that if you, as a small owner operator, as a small organization, really focused on training and developing your people, you can fucking overtake your niche from these big box retailers. Because even though they might have a larger network, they've lost a lot of talented people that actually understand what the fuck they're doing. So that, especially on the high-end side of clients and customers, is a big differentiator where they're willing to pay a premium to get things done correctly the first time, to make sure that they have that confidence in the people that they're working with. So that makes a difference. I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Okay. Like always, take a look at the description, grab that link. Okay. It is those guides to be able to help you do those focus trainings and be able to get the best performance from your team and be able to get them to stay longer with you. It goes a long way because then you understand that that's not going to have an issue on the back end with the headaches of having to replace those individuals, with the recruiting, with the hiring, the interviewing. You can avoid all of that by training your people and turning their performance around. Guys, I want to say thank you once again for spending another day here at Sales Manager Academy podcast. My name is Omar. As always, I'll catch you on the next one.